out there in YouTube land. Rival here. Thanks for stopping by. As you can see, we have a production knife on the turntable for you today. This is the infamous Kershaw Natrix. Before we dive in, I just want to give a shout out to Kershaw Guy, KershawGuy.com. Again, with the craziest, most lightning fast shipping ever. I ordered this thing like late Saturday afternoon. He's on the West Coast. I'm in Wisconsin. It gets here Monday, even though the tracking number originally said Tuesday. Badass. I'm pretty sure these are sold out at this point. I think he's the first person that I saw that actually had some in stock, so I would imagine more will be coming into some of your regular dealers shortly. Of course, I just got this in, so I have not had a lot of hands-on time with it, so I can't quite quote on some long-term aspects, but we'll definitely do an overview and quick discussion of the knife, but there it is. And may I say, for a $40 production knife, that looks sexy as hell. Got the deep carry clip. It does have a spacer, a ported spacer, I guess you'd say. I got some cutouts in there, pretty awesome. You've got the patented subframe lock. There is a detent ball, but there's no detent in the blade. I've looked, so you could not de-assist the knife. For some people, that's already a deal breaker. I know there are some adamant anti-speed safe folk out there, but I venture to guess, based on how many of their models Kershaw has speed safe on, that it is one of the top selling features they have. And being one of the largest knife manufacturers in planet Earth, I think they've got a pretty good idea on their customer base. So, you know, you're getting a speed safe. Would I prefer a manual? Yeah, but it's still going to be fun. 8CR13 MOV steel, 3 1/4 inch blade, 2.8 ounces on my scale. 2.8 ounces for a 3 1/4 knife. With G10, so you've got G10 on the handles. Again, a stainless steel subframe lock. Yeah, I mean, we'll dive right in. This is obviously, or maybe not obviously, because some of you may have never seen the original 777, which was a zero tolerance offering, a bit bigger than this, slightly. This is the production version of it, which several years in the making, several controversies in the making. I'm not going to get deep into it for fear of getting sued, but this having been called by some the greatest knife of all time, there's an interesting history in the Natrix. So it's nice to see this thing come to life, come to fruition. I definitely hope that it takes off for these guys. Well, not that Kershaw's never had a hit before, but I mean, for this particular model, I'd like to see, they teased at Blade Show, different colors, different coatings, different offerings, so I'd love to see some of that, because so far what I see of the knife, I like. I'm going to start off by saying this, it's a $40 knife. It's not a $200 knife, it's not even a $100 knife, it's a $40 knife. It's an overseas knife. I would have loved to have seen it made in USA. I'd pay $80 for it with Sandvik steel and all the same materials, just to be made in the USA. But $40, I think it'll get in the hands of a lot of people. You know, it's competing with the Spyderco Tenacious at that price point. It's competing with a couple of CRKTs at that price point. So, there's a subset of guys who are into $10 and $20 knives who might take the dive into a Kershaw for $40. So I'm excited about some of those prospects. And I think some people, just based on the cool factor, based on the interestingness factor, are going to try this knife out that probably wouldn't have dropped $40 on a knife in the past. So I'm interested to see how this knife does for Kershaw and what its future holds. That being said, 8CR13 MOV steel, it's a serviceable EDC steel. I haven't used it, this particular knife yet, but I've used 8CR13 for so long, I know that I'm going to be able to cut half a dozen pieces of cardboard and then strap it on one of the pieces of cardboard that I cut and continue to cut and kind of go in and out of that pattern throughout the course of the day without a problem. it's going to handle some pretty standardized tasks throughout the course of a day. Need minimal maintenance. It's going to be very easy to maintain when it is time for maintenance. So it's a perfectly fine steel at that price point. It's full G10, and it feels like G10, which is nice. And not only that, but it's sculpted G10, which I think is even cooler at that price point. Getting somebody into something, it really feels it feels good in the hand. I'm not going to lie, it feels good. At 2.8 ounces, I keep saying 2.8 ounces for you guys that are into lightweight stuff. I think that's pretty darn handy too. It's got a smaller clip. The butt flares a little too much for me. I might actually grind that down a little bit. I don't need such a big flare, but it's a nice clip. And in the hand, it's not. There's no hot spot or anything. Like you can see it in there, but it doesn't cause any problems for me, anyways. And ergonomically, I mean, that's one of the things that's the nicest about this particular design. Even in the 777, it melts in the hand. It is very comfortable. That Warney blade is going to be great for slicing and for detailed cutting. This is probably going to end up in my shop or just kind of an everyday beater knife for me. When I grab a knife that I need to do some work with, need to torque on a little bit, without having to worry about marring up my fancy blades. This will be one of those EDC blades. I imagine this will probably be my Christmas present to a couple people too. It does have an over travel stop built into the stainless steel lock bar. It's hard to see in the light, but the frame that the lock is riding on actually extends over this way a little bit and then down through the pocket clip, so that it provides its own over travel stop. And then it's bolted in. There's actually 5. So you got 3 screws here, 1, 2, 3, that screw the frame of this subframe lock in here. And then the pocket clip screws also screw into that same piece of steel. So you've got 5 screws holding it in here. So it is very, very durable and very secure. It's not going anywhere. It feels very much like a standard frame lock. It does have a stop pin at the top, and if anything, if there's any potential weakness for this particular knife, I would say it's that, because it's where the G10 is near its thinnest point. You can see how thin it is there, but it thickens where the shoulders are set into it. So I'd say if there's any potential problem, that's it. But the tension on the torque bar or the torsion bar isn't so great that it's putting heavy amounts of impact. And I also said the same thing about this knife many moons ago. It's the same deal. I mean, it's got shouldered stop pins in this piece of carbon fiber here, and this one is actually blind set in there. So the shoulders are only going maybe halfway into that carbon fiber, which is the only thing keeping this sucker in place, and it has held steady and fast for a long time. So I have no reason to believe, until I see otherwise, that the G10 isn't going to perform the same way on this particular Kershaw. So I mean, I guess I've kind of been singing its praises so far. It is very nicely sized, very comfortable in hand. The contours and everything are just gorgeous. As far as the flaws, I said it's spring assisted. That's more of a preference kind of thing. The only real complaint I've got about this, and I'm hoping that in the future this will be kind of worked through and worked out, but you've got this cutout, which I would imagine is supposed to be just like a smooth oval type shape, and you can see on this side, like this side over here is very smooth and even, and you can see right about there, there's a bit of a notch or a bit of a tooling indentation, where it's not the greatest. There's probably some burrs on there. It got tumbled and washed and deburred and everything, and it just kind of chipped in, highlighted the tooling marks in there. So it's not the prettiest thing in the world, not the ugliest thing in the world. It's a $40 knife. So really not the biggest of deals, not a deal breaker for sure. And maybe they were even going for more of kind of following the lines going up and down, so the deburring just kind of highlighted some ickiness there on the tool path. Centering is on mine is pretty much dead nuts perfect. one thing I had read a review by one person on blade forums that said their blade was warped, and when you look on this one at least straight to the top, you can tell this one's not warped because you could see through all three of those, which means that blade from here to there is dead nut center throughout. So there's no 1, 2, 3. There you go. See. So the blade is very much dead nut centered on this particular piece anyways. So I'll be curious to see if other people have that problem, if it was off center. The same gentleman said when he took it apart there was also 3 stacked washers on one side and only 1 on the other, where it should be evened out even with the speed safe. I think I saw a video where it showed it was kind of visibly off centered here too. So I'm hoping that was just a bad piece of assembly, unfortunately. Poor QC, but it's going to happen from time to time. Bummer to hear it happens on the first batch, but let's see how it plays out over time. Yeah, all in all, I'm pleased with this knife. Keeping in mind that it's a $40 knife. So there's a lot of things that I would expect of a ZT that this thing's going to get away with, whereas like this would be completely unacceptable on a ZT. Even the hot spot on the pocket clip, I'd bitch and moan about that a little bit on a ZT. They're just a little bit that much more refined. Real quick before I let you go, I'll give you a size comparison so you get an idea of what you're up against when you're getting something like this. $40. 3 1/4 inch blade. I'll put the full specs at the bottom of the video, overall length and all that jazz. But it is nearly identical, at least in length, to a ZT 0452. Even in the closed position, you've got a really good comparison. This is obviously wider than this. A lot skinnier, a lot wider blade, but really not that much wider. And pocketability wise, because you've got this angling in, when it goes in your pocket here, it angles towards the inside of your pocket. I realize my sign language here isn't helping there, but it does sit snug and against the seam on the inside of your pocket. So far it's been very unobstructive. But that's about the exact size as with that 0450. Butt to butt. And then just a hair bigger than that is the 0562. Like a 3.4 inch blade. Whereas this again is a 3 1/4 inch blade. Then you got a bit more butt on this guy too. But yeah, that is the Kershaw Natrix. Again, my overall impression, first impressions, is pretty darn good. I will say too, when I got this thing out of box, the action was a bit gritty. It felt a bit rough, and you could hear a little bit of crunching when you were going back and forth just from factory dust and things like that. I put 2 drops of nano oil on it, and it is, I'm not going to say smooth as butter because that would not be true, but it is very smooth. It is very, especially compared to what it was, it's much happier now. I also put a dot of nano oil on the detent ball that rides along the steel in here too, just to make that glide, or that path glide a little bit better. Yeah, again, that is the Kershaw Natrix 7007. Thanks for stopping by. Like and subscribe. Peace.